Hey friends, this is the Mrs. Wolfie from our half-acre homestead, and it's bean picking time. But I've only got beans from one bed. This, believe it or not, is two beds. This one's collapsing my climbers, and none of these are actually producing yet, except I got a couple of scarlet runners. However, my yellow bean bed has some bush beans in the bottom. I didn't know were bush beans, yellow bush beans, and this. And I got about 3 pounds of beans. Time to start canning. I only got beans from my yellow beans, but I have 3 other beds to go, and this was just the first picking. Yay! So tomorrow or tonight I will be canning beans. I am super jealous of your in-laws with the elk farm. Yeah, well, get this. Do you know how we have to here in Quebec, we have to, I don't know what it is in different provinces, but we have to enter a lottery. You have to spend $8 on a ticket in May, June, and they pull your name. And if you win the one of the lotteries, like there's so many doe tags they give out, then if you win, you get a doe tag. Otherwise, you have to look for a buck. And there's not as many bucks as there is does. This year, they said we can't take anything less. Now, we didn't get a doe tag, so we have to hunt buck. And we didn't get anything we cannot take anything less than a 5-point buck. We like 2 to 3 point bucks because they're young and tender, right? So we've decided if we can afford it, I'm still paying for my side of beef and my whole butchered pig. And when they're paid for, I'm going to start putting money aside. We're going to try and come up with $1,000 to buy an elk from Howie's sister and brother-in-law. And that means what we'll do is we'll go down there in November, dispatch it ourselves, gut it ourselves, skin it, and then wrap it in a tarp, bring it home to hang. But it has to be in November when things are cold, right? But to me, that's a lot of organic meat, right? Like they feed them, they're pasture raised, and they give them apples and carrots, just like you would deer, right? But why should we, go for a ticket that we can only get a 5-point buck or more, which are really hard to find around here, and when we can just actually go get an elk and bring it home, hang it, and then butcher it up ourselves. Okay, so here's our canner. Please excuse the sound of my air fryer. I'm making chicken tonight. Here is our canning pot, washed, rinsed, with the recommended amount of water in the bottom and a shot of white vinegar to keep my jars from clouding. There's my water for my jars. I have my baubles sitting in vinegar because I have hard water, so I like to make sure it's working properly. 8 lids, washed, rinsed, and sitting in warm water. 7, these are Classico jars, folks. These are Classico spaghetti jars. And I save them and reuse them because they're just a mason jar, but they are not a pint and they're not a quart. They are a pint and a half. And here is our first, I'm gonna say it's my first picking of beans because I just went out and got a couple more. But this is my first picking of beans, and my other beds, this is only from one bed. My other beds have not started to fruit yet. I use for a debobbler, I have this silicone, and I don't like using this silicone one because it has a ridge that catches food, so I take that off and I use this for my debobbler. So now we're gonna put our beans in here. Gosh, I hope you guys can see what I'm doing here. Whoops, beans flying all over the place. Half a teaspoon of salt. Let's make sure these are all down. I prefer the 750 ml or pint and a half jar because Howie and I love beans. And sometimes a pint just isn't enough. Fill it all the way to 1 inch from the top or to the bottom thread. Debubble. Make sure you get all the bubbles out. Always, always wipe your rims with a clean damp paper towel. And into the canner that goes. Now, I am raw packing my beans, but it is considered hot pack because I'm using hot water. If you cold pack with cold water, make sure that your canner is not on with hot water because putting a cold jar in a hot canner can result in your jars breaking. So pick a side, either hot pack and put into a hot canner or do cold. And every once in a while, run your finger around the jar when you're washing it just to make sure there's no chips. We work hard for our garden produce. Make sure everything's done properly. 4 jars, always. Fingertip tight. Okay, so here we have 7 3/4 pints and 1 pint of beans. And we're going to put our lid on. Oh, the rubber gasket's gone. I always wash these before I use them because you never know what gets in between the gasket and the lid. All right, we're going to turn this right up. And as soon as this starts to spout a steady stream of steam, we will vent the canner for 10 full minutes. Always vent the canner. If you don't properly vent the canner for the full amount of time, you're messing with the integrity of the pressure inside the canner. So you always, always, always vent the canner for 10 minutes, and then when you put the weight on it, it helps build the proper pressure inside the canner. Steady stream of steam looks like. My bobble is popped up. I'm spouting a steady stream of steam, and my timer is set. Okay, the timer has gone off. I've removed my little gadget from the vinegar. And as soon as we get our first vigorous jiggle, I'm going to set my timer. It's 30 minutes for pints, or is it 25 minutes? I think it's 25 minutes for pints, 30 minutes for quarts. I have a pint and a half jar in here, so therefore we're going to time it as quarts. So there's our first vigorous jiggle. I'm going to set my timer for 30 minutes, and I'm going to turn this down because obviously that's too high of a temperature. So I'm going to turn it down between medium and maximum, and then we're just going to let this do its jiggle every now and then, and the timer is set for 30 minutes. Okay, my timer has gone off, and now I'm just going to shut off the canner, and I'm going to let it cool naturally. Letting the canner cool naturally is part of the canning process. If you jiggle this weight or take it off or rapid cool your canner in any way, and for God's sakes don't try and take the lid off it while it's still hot, what happens if you don't let this cool down properly is it will, the rapid release of pressure will siphon fluid off from your jars. So please folks, there are a reason these rules are in place. Okay, I let these, ow, ow, ow. I let these cool in the canner overnight. So far only one bed of the beans is producing, and that's the yellow beans. But I'm grateful for every jar. And there it is. My first batch of beans. This is the Mrs. Wolfie from our half-acre homestead saying,
My pantry wouldn't be my pantry without home canned beans in it. Mwah! Take care, God bless.
Remember, folks, if you're not using 4Jars canning lids, you're missing out. Heavier than any other single-use lids on the market, they are a U.S. company, and these lids are of superior quality, the only lids I will use. Check the description box below this video for the link, and use the coupon code HALFACRE for 10% off. Orders over $50, ship free within the USA. Check them out on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. They make the perfect gift for the home canner in your life. 4Jars lids. You can't go wrong.